Hello friends, we are in Point Fortin, Trinidad, and we just created that video. If you haven't seen it, make sure to look at the Point Fortin walkthrough. I'm heading back to San Fernando and then later to Port of Spain. So this is a Point Fortin to Diego Martin video in which we will talk together. Now if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. It is free. All you have to do is hit the subscribe button. Please let your friends know. Please like, please comment. That helps my channel to grow. My channel is growing well, but it's not nowhere where it needs to be. Now today we're going to do something different. On the left, on the lower left, is going to be a red bar that's going to have a subject and a timeline like you're seeing now. What is JB's Man Cave? And you'll see a counter counting down there. We're going to have some set topics that we can talk about to get to know each other. You can also respond to these topics in the comments area. So I'm going to tell a little bit about what is JB's Man Cave. JB's Man Cave is a selection of videos that I have created for you that is kind of artsy in that it's from a perspective that people don't normally take. It has a raw value in that I try to keep the video as is without trying to edit it all the time or make it look in a certain way to create an illusion. I always rather to keep things to look as they are, as they appear, so that you feel like you are there with me. And that's what it's all about here on JB's Man Cave. Now why it's called JB's Man Cave is because a man cave is usually a place in a house where the man of the house uses like a room or a basement for his own interest and hobbies. But in the case of my channel, this is like my online man cave where I keep a selection of videos of things that have my interest. And that usually is about traveling, trucks, do-it-yourself, inspirational thoughts, different things, but all things that have some sort of substance to it, or maybe some perspective that you might not have thought about before. That's what JB's Man Cave is about. So this particular video is created in Trinidad and Tobago, which is a country in the Caribbean. Trinidad and Tobago are two islands. One of course is called Trinidad and the other is Tobago, which is the sister island and is a bit smaller. So we are actually on the island of Trinidad in this video, which is actually the southern part of the island, and the area is called Point Fortin. I just had a day of recording, so this is my way back up to the north of the country, which is where I reside. Now Trinidad and Tobago is part of the Caribbean and part of what is also known as the West Indies, but most people in the world know the area as the Caribbean. They don't really know it as West Indies. That's more for people who are more familiar with, you know, the area and the region. But somebody that's not from the region will not know West Indies per se. Anyway, so if you are not from Trinidad and Tobago, you may be wondering where all the beaches and coconut trees are. Well, this is actually typically what Trinidad looks like. There are areas designated for that, but those areas that have beaches and coconut trees are not the norm. This is mostly what you see. This is Trinidad. So yes, this is the Caribbean, and the Caribbean covers a certain part of the region. A lot of people think that all of the Atlantic, or I should say all of the western side of the Atlantic, is the Caribbean, but it's not. The Caribbean Sea is like a basin, a humongous basin, but it's not. It does not encompass all of the islands. For instance, the Bahamas is not part of the Caribbean physically, although it's considered to be part of the Caribbean culturally. The Caribbean is made up of many islands, many languages, and many cultures. For instance, you have in the Caribbean English speaking, Spanish speaking, Dutch speaking, French speaking, and in each of those islands has their own way of doing things. There are some commonalities, but the Caribbean is a vast place. A lot of people think of the Caribbean as just some isolated place, but it's very big and it encompasses a lot of countries. You can know that from any place that has to do with voting, for instance, FIFA or the UN. The Caribbean usually has a lot of votes because there are a lot of countries within the Caribbean. As small as they may be, they still have a voice and sovereignty. So there has been always this push to try and make Trinidad and Tobago a first world nation. I guess if you look at this video, you will already see in your mind it looks third world, and it is a third world nation. We haven't reached anywhere close to being a first world nation. Many people in their minds believe that Trinidad and Tobago is first world, but it's far from it. There's so much to do, especially where it comes to infrastructure. It's lacking badly. You can tell by the roads, the lack of the pavement or sidewalk, the lampposts that are kind of sliding. There's so much to do, and there's always this political banter of whose responsibility it is and where has the money gone to make Trinidad and Tobago a first world nation, because it can be, but things are not going where it should be. Most of the other Caribbean islands, for instance, do not have the luxury of having oil as part of a GDP. They rely a lot on tourism and other exports, but Trinidad has all that here. It even has its own pitch lake, and yet still we have some of the worst roads and people that have poor salaries and whatnot. So yes, it is a third world country. So the main or the official language here is English, but there's a very strong dialect, and that dialect just blankets everything. I mean, while you would go to school and learn Queen's English, because we spell in the British English, because Trinidad was once a British colony, the way people talk and the way people interact, even in official manners, is all using dialect. And dialect is like a mixture of something called patois, which is French and Spanish, as well as broken English. I mean, excuse me, if you really listen to it, it really sounds like somebody that can't speak well, and they just make up a lot of slang for things, speaking in broken English as though it was a second language, and making up stuff that has a context to it. Like one word would mean a whole bunch of things. Really, unless you know dialect and you know the background to it, it may be hard for you to understand as a foreigner. I have heard foreigners trying to speak dialect, but they always sound funny when they do it. So there is a strong dialect. There are many races here: African, Indian, mixed, Syrian, Chinese, and European. So Trinidad and Tobago was once a British colony, but the American or North American influence has been very heavy here, especially during World War II. The US came here to build a lot of the roads, airport, runways and stuff, in fighting against the Nazis. And so there was a big American influence here, and still is influenced a lot by the North Americans in the amount of imports from the States. People here love stuff from the States, whether it be the clothes, the brands, the products, the foods. There's a high demand for US dollars in order to import goods from the States, and I don't think that's really unique to Trinidad and Tobago. It seems to be a worldwide phenomenon to have all the things that you see on television and in movies. People want to have it within their own homes and grasp. So there is a big influence from North America here. Even though the education follows the British line of things, it's still heavily influenced by the States. Now, safety and crime is a big issue in the country, probably one of the top issues, if not the top issue, because if you feel unsafe, you really cannot concentrate on anything else. And there's a pyramid of needs, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and one of the top things is that you need to feel safe. If you feel unsafe, you will not be able to progress in any way. So crime is a big issue here. There's a very high murder rate. People always talk about the break-ins to homes, larceny, scams, robberies, etc. Now it's not like you're walking on the road and you're like in Afghanistan or some place where somebody might start shooting or whatever. It's not like that. A lot of these crimes are isolated to certain areas, but the frequency of it is such that everybody always feels on their guard and are suspicious about anybody that looks like a character. You would be well aware if you're coming from a foreign country to make sure you go in a group. Do not venture out by yourself, otherwise you can make yourself a target. So crime is a big issue in Trinidad and Tobago, more so in Trinidad, less in Tobago, although of recent Tobago has seen a crime increase. Employment always seems to be an issue here, even though many will claim that the unemployment rate is low. The problem with getting a job is that yes, you could get a job, but is the salary matching the cost of living? And the truth is it's not. Salaries here are very low, even for educated people. They don't get what they justly deserve, and so people have to work hard in order to get by. Sometimes they will have their main job and then like a sideline hustle that they would do to make extra money, probably on weekends or as a second job. Most people here like to have their own business going on, even though they may have a 9 to 5 job, because that helps supplement what they wouldn't otherwise be able to afford. As far as being able to sell and do things, even though there's a lot of red tape in setting up an official business, if you just intend to do a little hustle like sell food or whatever on the side, it's quite easy to get started with that. It can be just as simple as cooking something and just going down the road, putting a table, putting a sign and starting to sell it, and people would buy. That's one of the interesting things and positive things about Trinidad. It's easy to sell stuff. The music of Trinidad and Tobago follows the line of something called calypso and soca music and steel pan music. I'm sure you've heard a lot of those things, but they are not the whole thing about the Caribbean, because for instance that might be for other islands, but in Trinidad there's also tassa music, chutney music, in East Indian music is very prevalent here. There's also African music, African drums and so forth. There, for instance in North America you might have a lot of classical music, classical instruments. That's not really a big thing here. You'll find that there might be, for instance, classical steel pan, but there may not necessarily be a push, for instance, in schools to learn the piano or anything like that. It's more a push to learn the steel pan, the recorder, the flute, and so forth. So that's the kind of music here. Of course, the population listens to whatever they want, so people might still be interested in North American music like pop, rock, hip hop, rap, and so forth. You can hear all of that here. There's also something called dub music, which originated from Jamaica. Dancehall music and reggae is also prevalent here. One of the things that I guess anybody coming to Trinidad will ask is what is there fun to do? Well, if you're into nature, there's lots to do with nature. I mean, there's lots of things you can do with regards to hiking. Plenty of hikes, plenty of outdoor activities, camping, exploring, and so forth. However, in doing those things, again, because of the safety aspect, you have to make sure that you go in a group. Don't venture to places that are so isolated and by yourself that you could end up in a predicament. Not necessarily because of criminals, but just because you could fall down a precipice, or you could be trapped or whatever, and you need help. There is cinemas, there are lots of restaurants, foods, there are discotheques and stuff, but the truth in fact is sometimes it's pretty hard to find activities outside of things that you already expect from a Caribbean island. And so if your intention is to not be, let's say, camping or hiking or exploring, you want something where you could just keep your clothes on, the activities aren't many and isn't as diverse. Trinidad could use a lot more. So people tend to focus their activities on a lot of eating and drinking and something called liming or fetting. Those are the main activities or fun activities here. Trinidad and Tobago has a diverse amount of religious beliefs and religious organizations. You could find everything here from Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, Christianity, of course, and the many names within the Christian banner, such as Roman Catholic, Anglican, Evangelical, Pentecostal, Jehovah's Witness, and so forth. There are even Mormons here. So you may find a diversity of religious groups here, and unlike other countries where there's always this war, that doesn't really exist amongst religious organizations here. In fact, there's something called the IRO, which has been formed to bring all the religious bodies together, and they speak on behalf of the different organizations as one body. In fact, religion here has such a strong presence that it influences politics, the culture, everything. But would I say Trinidadians are particularly religious? I wouldn't say in a devotee way or a zealot way. I mean, they believe in God, they may pray and stuff, but there isn't like this zealous way to be preaching religion. At least not in my opinion. If you think otherwise, you can always say in the comments area. Medical issues, for instance, you have a heart attack, there's a claim that you could jump in a maxi and go to the hospital and you would get treatment right away. Well, I don't know about that. You might die before the ambulance could pick you up, and if you have to jump in a maxi in order to solve a heart attack problem, then it's likely you might die in a maxi. However, there are hospitals and doctors and stuff. For citizens, you could just simply go in and sign up for a clinic or to see a doctor, and it's all free, including most of the medication. However, the treatment you may get and the time you have to wait might be quite long. It's dependent really on the person that attends to you, like anything else. For me personally, I find there's a big health problem in Trinidad, And when I say big health problem, people are always coughing, sneezing, you know. It's like they're always in a sickly state, and I don't think they see it themselves. A lot of it has to do with hygiene, the way they treat things and the way they handle their own bodies, and because of it, diseases spreads here often, and they literally give it a name each week for a new virus that is passing through the country, and it's really sad. Now, if you're thinking of coming to Trinidad to live as a foreigner, let me let you know that you can't just come to Trinidad and Tobago and think, well, this is a third world country, this is a Caribbean, I'll just land and start doing whatever. I know a lot of people do that, but by law, you really have to have a reason and a way to exit this country when you come in. For instance, if you need a work permit, it costs a lot of money, and I mean thousands of dollars to get a work permit. So usually a company would have to sponsor that, and they would probably need your specific skill, and they would have to apply to immigration. The other way you can come in here legally is if you are married to somebody who is a Trinidadian. That person can post a bond for you. You can stay legally while the papers are processing. But that's not always the case for everyone. You know, in the end, the immigration officer has to determine your legitimacy in coming to Trinidad and Tobago. So, in other words, immigration laws can be stiff, but there are ways to come here legally. Please always come into the country legally. There are a lot of illegal immigrants here, and while they each have their background and their challenge, it has proven to be quite a strain on the country. Yeah, so I just touched on illegal immigrants a lot. We get a lot of illegal immigrants from all over the world. And you would think, oh, why would they want to come to a place like Trinidad? Well, Trinidad and Tobago actually offers a lot of, um, do I say promises, opportunities for people from coming from countries that don't have it as good as we do. Because in some things we do have it good, huh? It may not seem so for people who already live here. Life is a struggle. But coming from other countries that may be war torn or where people are oppressed, where they can't even get basic things like food or have utilities, Trinidad may seem like a bed of roses. So there are a lot of illegal immigrants here, especially from Venezuela because of the Venezuelan crisis. But other countries where illegal immigrants come from are Africa and some parts of Asia as well, Bangladesh and India and so forth. There are a lot of people here from there that are not legal in the country, but there isn't this big push to go around trying to deport illegals. So most people end up staying. One thing that I can honestly say is pretty good here is the availability of public transport. Um, Unlike other countries, you can always get some sort of vehicle, whether it be private or public, to go from point A to point B. And for somebody working in Trinidad that isn't being paid much, the cost of transportation might seem a lot, but really it isn't, because you could go in a vehicle and almost travel across the country for maybe $1 or $2, and you really couldn't do that in another country. The way transportation works here is that you can either hire a car privately, where it's just you and the car, or you share the vehicle, which is normal for here. So for instance, a car that is in H, which is hired, would not just pick up you but pick up other people, and you all will all be going to the same destination. Now, let's say you want to go to a specific part of that area. You can always pay the driver a little extra and he would drop you to that specific area. In addition to that, we have water taxis, buses. We have luxurious buses too, which are air conditioned with airplane seats and so forth, where the cost of the transportation there is not too bad. So in Trinidad and Tobago, we use Trinidad and Tobago dollars, which against the US dollar is like almost 7 Trinidad and Tobago dollars or TT dollars for 1 US dollar. And that's the basic exchange rate. However, it is very hard to get US dollars legally. And when I say legally, I mean, let's say you're going on a vacation trip. The banks, and I'm just talking about today, will only give you 200 US in exchange for Trinidad and Tobago dollars. So you could be going to, let's say, Miami, and you will only have $200 to take with you. So the only way to get around that is most people who can afford it will get a US Visa card, which allows them to spend abroad. But you know, that comes from the banks, and the banks here are very particular about who they give those cards. So not everybody can get access to that. So there's a very strong black market with regards to US currency. People are always cramming for US currency, especially businesses, where they import a lot of stuff. By the way, anything that I'm saying you feel like you want to add to, you can always add in the comments area. This trip is on the southern main road, and we're passing through different areas, and while I'm talking you can look and see what's going on around, right? So Trinidad and Tobago, as you see, is simply islands within the Caribbean, but I don't want to say that we are so special as compared to other islands, but we are unique in the kind of resources that are here, because I find that you know, the other islands, for instance, depend so much on exporting their food or the spices or tourism, but we have natural resources here like a pitch lake, oil and gas, machinery, factories and stuff. I mean, really we could be doing so much more. You know, we could truly be the breadbasket of the region. For as small as we are, things should be way better. You know, the roads should be well paved, well marked, infrastructure should be top of the line. But you know, even in just observing this road trip, you can see it's not that way. The roads tend to have a lot of potholes and stuff. There is also a big brain amongst the people here, I would call it, you know, where lots of people are quite talented both in art and academics, you know, but somehow I don't know, it just does not reach society except for certain things like carnival. With regards to mannerism, Trinidadians are particularly friendly, I would say. You know, like anything else, you may have one or two that are a bit gruff, a bit, how to put it, without manners. But generally, people here are welcoming, especially if they know you're a foreigner. They will try to be, I would say, extra hospitable. That's not in every single case, but I'm just picking about generally. However, for in my opinion, there are some that are without manners. It's very typical for here, for instance, when you're entering a place to say good morning, good afternoon, whatever. I know in North America and those places they don't do that, but here they do that. And if you don't do that, then people will see you as being rude or not brought up properly or whatever. However, those kinds of things are disappearing, I find. People are becoming less tolerable and less polite. So people will just expect you to do things without saying, please or thank you or whatever. So that's basically how manners are today. Tell me what you think in the comments area, because I know everything is based on perspective. So food is a big part of Trinidad and Tobago. I mean, as I was saying earlier with regards to fun and activities, food is like the main thing, the main attraction of any activity. In fact, you could say that you go into any particular activity which would be in itself fun, but somebody will want to know what it's going to be prepared for food. You could have the most fun activity planned, but if you don't have nice food there, probably nobody would come. So food is very important here. People love to eat, and I can honestly say that people from Trinidad and Tobago really know how to cook well. They know how to use their spices and stuff, and because of the blend of cultures, we are able to bring together some of the best dishes you would ever taste in the world. I'm not just saying that because I'm from here, because I've traveled to many countries, and I can honestly say I have never seen in any of these countries that I've been to such a combination of spices and tastes and whatnot. It's really, really good. If you haven't tried it, make sure and try it. I for myself am vegan, and amazingly enough, a lot of the foods that are offered here are already vegan. So that is very good. So the economics of Trinidad and Tobago fall heavily on oil and gas as the main GDP. The thing is, the world is going in the direction of green and getting away from oil and gas. So at some point, Trinidad will need to pick up its manufacturing, its hospitality industry, tourism, and so forth, if they expect to survive in, let's say, the next 20 years, where oil and gas may not be as popular as it is now. Because a lot of countries are trying to phase that out, so there will not be as big a demand. I don't know why solar energy isn't more publicized here. I mean, we have the Caribbean sun, we have a lot of trade winds that could turn turbines and so forth. Maybe that will be more apparent in the future, but in the meantime, the government, being the biggest employer of the public sector, that really pulls a lot of the money that could otherwise be spent on developing the country. The private sector really cannot hire everybody here. So that's the main challenge with economics in Trinidad and Tobago. So Trinidad and Tobago is like 8 miles off the coast of Venezuela. We are very close to Barbados, Grenada, and St. Vincent. Further on the southern continent, we have Suriname, Guyana, and so forth. All these countries are considered friendly to Trinidad and Tobago. You always hear the little spats and infighting here and there, but generally everybody gets along well and is friendly with each other. And by extension too, you also have the US, which is further north, and many of the other Caribbean islands do interact with Trinidad and Tobago. Generally, I find that where politics are concerned, Trinidad and Tobago tries to keep a neutral standpoint, very Rare will they make a forceful stand on one way or the other. For instance, a good example of that is they may be allies of the US but that still have relations with, let's say, Venezuela, who is at odds with the US, and they act almost like an in-between. Sometimes it's hard to decipher which one or which side they're on. They seem to play both sides pretty well at times. So the police force. In Trinidad and Tobago, there is a big police force compared for the island, but a lot of people have that as a necessity because there's such a high crime rate in Trinidad and Tobago. If you ask anybody in Trinidad and Tobago about the police, they will each have something different to tell you, both good and bad experiences. In general, I have found personally that, like anything else, it really depends on who you encounter. Sometimes you might encounter a police officer that's very helpful, very nice, goes beyond their way to help you. And then there are others that are gruff and short and speak to you like an animal. Not to defend them, but there are times that I have seen police be very patient with people, and the people get on like, like hogs, speak really bad to the police officer, even start cursing and stuff, and the police officer is just there taking it until they can't take it no more. And then when they react, the people make an uproar. So sometimes it's like a tit for tat, but everybody has a different take on the police. So let's say you have an emergency and you call the ambulance. Two things about that. One would be, first, sometimes the 911 system here, you could end up with a busy tone. And sometimes you might get through right away. It all depends. But depending on your location, it might be a while for an ambulance to pick you up. There has been a couple times when there were emergencies in my own family, especially with I have special needs children, and the ambulance came in, I would say, around 10-15 minutes. It wasn't a hardline emergency, but they were prompt, they were professional, and so forth. I mean, it's like a 50-50 thing. It really depends again on who you get. I think that's a main problem with things in Trinidad and Tobago. You're not sure exactly what you will get on any given day. It really depends on the factors of what resources are available when you have that emergency and who is the person responding to it. It shouldn't be like that. Professionalism should be across the board, but unfortunately here it's not like that. Now, most people here dress, of course, according to wherever they have to work, whether there's a uniform. School children here, be it primary or secondary, do have to wear uniforms. So we still follow that example from the British. So children are not like in the States where they just wear whatever. No, they have uniforms. People here dress in jeans, t-shirts and stuff. You always have some people who like to dress like if it's winter time, which I don't understand. They have their hoodie and stuff in the hot Caribbean sun. And because people here dress like that, well clothed, they can always pick out a foreigner, because when people from North America come here, they always try to dress as light as possible and as colorful as possible. So they usually come with their shorts and their slippers and whatnot and their hat. And people here don't dress like that, even though they live in the Caribbean. So foreigners have a tendency to stand out. I guess we are so used to the heat that we just don't see a difference. But everybody also have, of course, their own personal dress styles, and it also is very dependent on your religious beliefs. I would say the majority of the people in Trinidad are day people. They like to do things during the day, work hard and whatnot, and at night rest. Of course, like anything else, you will have night people. But for the most part, if you came out at night, except for maybe just as the sun goes down, up till around maybe 8 or 9, you would see people about. But after that, people are getting ready for work the next day or school or whatever, so they tend to go to sleep or, wind down, as they say. So the majority of people in Trinidad are day people, and some of them, a lot of them in fact, are very early morning people because they have to travel sometimes great distances and go through a lot of traffic to get to work or get to school or whatever. So there isn't a lot of room to be being up all night. How about you? Are you a day or night person? You can always tell me in the comments area. Just make sure to say what you're replying to so that we can all be aware. How do you like this waterfront and this road? This is one of the recent developments, long awaited. The sea used to encroach on here, so hopefully with this new development there will be no more flooding. Okay, so we're going to shift some of the questions to be a little more personal to myself. So some people might want to know what my childhood was like. I grew up with my mother and father. I have talked about my father a lot in some of my videos. Those of you who are dedicated fans would know about that. There was a lot of fighting at home at times. Made me quite nervous, and sometimes I did not know how to handle it, but I was more or less a quiet child, kept to myself. I did have quite a number of friends and would hang out with those friends whenever I could, but I always had a tendency to not find myself in any trouble. I did appreciate my parents giving me some leeway. They weren't so strict as to be on my back and as to what I was doing, but at the same time I did wish they took more interest in my own development with my education and so forth. But more or less I think I had a relatively normal childhood. I think the only exception to that was we were always moving, and I always felt very unsettled, and if I ever made friends, within a few months I would have to move again and lose those friends. So that was the only disturbing part of my childhood that I really did not like. So my religious views is not so simple. Um, my parents were Catholic when I was born. They later converted to Mormonism, and I grew up within that. Was quite dedicated to the point that I was a missionary. From an early age, from a teenager, I would go around with missionaries proselyting around Trinidad and Tobago, almost as a full-time missionary. Looking back, that really wasn't a good thing for me. I should have been concentrating on my education, and I wish the push was towards my education, but I end up being a 16-year-old and walking up into remote places with missionaries. preaching the gospel. And I later went to England and Wales and did the same for 2 years full time until I was age 21. So I've been a missionary for quite a long time. I later got married and I used to be a minister within the same church. But at some point in time, I came to the realization that spirituality really is about your own personal, and how to put this, connection with God. So I respect all religions and religious beliefs and don't try to put down other people's because of their religion. For main meals, I tend to eat things that are vegan. I am a vegan, so that means I do not eat any animal products. That means no milk, no cheese, no animal meat or anything like that. I eat just things that are grains and breads and flours and vegetables and fruits and whatnot. And people might say that's hard, but it really isn't. I have lots of videos that talk more about that if you like to know. I also produce short videos showing you sometimes what I eat. It's actually not the typical things that I eat because I like to eat a lot of rice and peas and stuff. But when I'm traveling, it's very hard to stop and cook things like that because it takes quite a while and it's just me. So it doesn't make sense pressure cooking a whole set of food just for me alone. So I tend to eat things that are quick on the go. But one of my favorite meals is actually just oat crackers with any kind of nut butter, like almond butter or peanut butter. Anything to just keep me going. Those are my main meals. I do like desserts. The problem with desserts is that, again, because I'm vegan, I have to be careful with what I eat. I don't like to contribute to the milk movement because I believe that, in producing milk, cows are tortured, really, to get that milk. That is a whole subject of its own. But most desserts are created with milk. There are many desserts that are not. So if I was going to partake in, let's say, chocolate, which I have a little weakness for, I will tend to get dark chocolate and make sure that the ingredients does not include milk. My wife makes a really nice chocolate for me, dark chocolate, with using coconut oil and some sugar. So the thing is that you have to be careful with what you're using and doing if you're vegan. Before I was vegan, I used to be very big on all kinds of desserts, especially ones from the UK like trifle. The UK has some of the best desserts ever that you can taste. If you agree with me, you can always tell me in the comments area. Sometimes people will ask me what I do for fun. For me, fun is work. And I know that may sound odd, but sometimes I find it very hard to get time to do work. And so when I am able to do work, I feel happy about it. But if I want to really practically say what I like doing for fun, I like things that involve adventure, exploring, and so forth. I mean, you should be able to ascertain that from a lot of my exploration videos, driving and exploring stuff. I also like learning a lot about stuff. So if somebody is, for instance, professional in something, it doesn't really matter what it is. If they are willing to stand up and explain and show to me, that's a lot of fun. I know that's boring for a lot of other people, but I just love to learn new things. Um, so anything new really is fun for me. I'm an older age now, so there isn't a lot of stunts, fast movements, or whatever that I'm interested in. Like the roller coaster ride, even though I can go on, it really doesn't interest me. What do you do for fun? You can always tell me in the comments area. I have a whole video on what is my race. Make sure to look for it. I know people will come with these answers like, "Oh, we are part of the human race." I know what they're trying to do by saying that, but to me, those kinds of sayings are silly. If you're filling out a form and one of the questions on your form says, "What race are you?" you can't put human race. That's not going to be acceptable. You need to put a race. Now, for me, I identify as mixed. I know mixed is not a particular race, but that's how I identify. I did a DNA test, and in the video it showed that the majority of my blood is European, about 2/3. But do I identify as an European or as white? No, I don't. The other third was African and some diaspora, some Amerindian, and so forth. But do I identify with any of those as well? Not really. I consider myself individual and unique, mixed. I don't particularly gravitate to any particular end of the spectrum. As I said earlier, growing up, we used to do a lot of moving, and because of that, I would go to different schools. Uh, so really, I did not like school, unfortunately, because of my home life. But one subject I was naturally always good at was art, so I always appreciated art. It was always easy for me. People always thought I was really good at it. And while I didn't develop it to, let's say, a professional level, I did do a lot of things with art. So I would say art was one of my favorite subjects, and connected to art was also architecture and drafting. Those are things that I really like to do. Um, I wasn't bad either at English. It's one of my favorite subjects. As we're here, I could say one of my worst subjects was math, and still not good at it today. How about you? What was your favorite school subject? And which one did you not like at all? You can always tell me in the comments area. Oh, I'm definitely an introvert. I'm not an extrovert at all. I really enjoy peaceful time by myself. Now, if I'm in a crowd or if I'm among people, people may not consider me an introvert because I can adapt and get along and talk with people and laugh, and people might think I'm an extrovert, but really inside of me I prefer to be on my own doing things or just with my family. I know a lot of people might consider themselves able to do both, but to me, you may able to be flexible. I think it's called omnivore or so. I can't remember. But anyway, you even if you can do both, you can be introvert sometimes, extrovert sometimes. There is one that's going to override the other, and something where you really like to be. For me, that's just being an introvert. But how about you? Are you an extrovert? Do you like being outside around people, you know, interacting with people often, or do you just prefer to be mostly on your own, doing stuff by yourself and so forth? Again, you can always tell me in the comments area. Remember, this road trip is not only the trip itself, but getting to know each other. Growing up, I used to have a certain love for a type of music, but at my age, I've learned to really accept and love all kinds of music. I find that, especially in creating videos, sometimes I go and I search for music for different countries and different things, and I realize, you could really get into a lot of music. I like Indian, I like African, I like classical, I like pop, I like rock, I like hip hop, rap. But I mean, of course, if I was to say I have a favorite music, you wouldn't believe which one I like the most. I like medieval Irish music, Gaelic music, like Enya, Clanad, and those things. That's the kind of music I like. I also like the older pop rock era. Not too much of the stuff that they have today, which is actually to me just a copy of the 80s and the 90s. But I like varying types of music. It really depends on the mood I'm in. If I feel for a more serene mood, I might put Enya. If I feel more up up and about, I might put something like Tubaway Army. It depends on how I feel or what I'm doing, etc. How about you? So I'm mostly an introvert, but if I'm around people, the company I keep has to be people that I feel comfortable with. I mean, not only just comfortable with as far as maybe safety goes, or that I like them in particular, but I like company in which I feel like I'm learning something, or the company is beneficial in some way. In other words, not necessarily beneficial to me, but I feel like I'm achieving something. In other words, for me, I can't just sit around and aimlessly talk and laugh about nothing in particular. I have to feel like, this conversation I'm learning something from. Or I have to feel like, I'm helping this person in the process of getting to know them. Something like that. At my age, just talking for the sake of talking or laughing just for the sake of laughing is not an enjoyable thing for me. I like to feel like I'm always constructive in anything that I do. How about you? What kind of company do you keep, and would your company reflect you as a person? Now, you notice I use the word animal or words animal companions and not pets, because I believe animals are also living with us on this planet. We are not necessarily superior to them. We may have more cognitive abilities than animals, but that does not mean they have any less right to living on this planet side by side with us. And so if we wish to have an animal, let's say in our home, they should be treated as part of the family and not subjugated like a slave and kept on a chain and put outside in the cold and so forth. I'm very much against that. If I was to have animal companions, my first choice would be a dog, especially dogs that are um, very cognitively alert. There's certain breeds that are like that, but I like all dogs. I've also grown to love cats to some degree. I like cats simply because they have their own unique personalities, but they are not my first preference. Again, um, animal companions should not be chained and locked up. So if you plan to have any of these, please let them be free. For instance, I could not even comprehend having a bird in a cage. That to me just is disturbing. Growing up, I used to like a lot of sports. Believe it or not, I used to like a lot of American football. I used to play a lot of it in school. I used to like a lot of wrestling and stuff, but as far as watching sports, I like football, or as some of you know, it's soccer. Like watching the World Cup, tracking certain teams and so forth. I just love that. In fact, on JB's Man Cave, sometimes when there are big events like the World Cup, the FIFA World Cup, you'll see me creating videos where I track the teams and ask people to make their predictions on certain games. And that's going to be, if I plan to do that for the upcoming next FIFA World Cup, that's going to be hard because they're going to have even more teams than usual. I'm going to see what I'm going to do for that. What kind of sports do you like? Do you play any yourself? Or do you follow any? Do you have any particular sports heroes? You can always let me know again in the comments area. Tell me what interests you. By the way, we are leaving the San Fernando area and we're heading to the highway, and this highway will take us north. My main work is as a web designer, maintaining sites online, creating sites and so forth. But I'm trying really to transition to more videography and video creation, social media interaction and moderation. That's the things that interest me at the moment. I'm trying to get away from coding and design and that type of thing. I find there's a lot of work in it. There are a lot of demands by the client, and they often don't pay as well as they should because there's so much automation and AI in the industry now that soon I don't think there will really be much of a need for web designers or even web developers. Excuse me. So, however, the creative scene, things like videography and so forth, there's still a big avenue for that. There's still a need for a lot of generation in social media. I hope one day that I can become a big influencer and have this channel grow exponentially. I don't have the general demeanor for it because I know a lot of people tend to be more excitable that become big, but who knows? I'm a bit different. Maybe different things will happen. Everyone has some kind of pet peeve. For me, I don't like being around people that are pretentious or sarcastic. I really dislike sarcasm. I don't like when people, don't take you seriously as a human. For instance, if you don't like something or you prefer something, that should be respected. It shouldn't be made fun of. It shouldn't be disrespected and so forth just because you don't see it as important. That makes me a bit pissed. For instance, I just don't like loud songs, and when somebody is loud, it means they just don't care that their influence is bothering the next person. That says a lot about the person themselves. I like peace, I like serenity, and people who disturb that really bothers me. Other things that bother me too is hygiene. I just can't understand somebody going from the toilet and after just flushing the toilet, they immediately open the door. You don't hear them turn on the water and wash their hands. That's a big pet peeve, and it should be for anybody. But you won't believe the amount of people that do that. So those are some of my pet peeves. How about you? Oh, I've had some many embarrassing moments, but I think one that stood out to me is from my youth. When I was a teenager, I had this interest in having a certain hairstyle done. And my hair, well, most of my videos you see me bald head more or less, right? But in my younger days, I used to keep my hair um, normal length, but my hair is very curly, big curls. And I was looking at this magazine and I saw a hairstyle that I wanted. And I asked my mother who did hairdressing, to help me out to get that hairstyle. And she put some chemicals in my hair and stuff, and it made my hair like go all over the place. Really, it was nothing like the style that was in the magazine. And when I went to school, people were looking at me like, what the heck is that? What did you do to your head? And I never forgot that day. As I went home, I went straight and I just, cut all my hair off. I was like, no way, I'll never do that again. I think that was the most embarrassing thing for me. How about you? Oh, I have so many regrets. I think we all have regrets, right? But we can't dwell on them. But if I could say there's one big regret I have is not focusing on education. Um, while my childhood wasn't presenting itself as stable enough to really gain a full education, I think there were times that I could have focused more on education and wish I did. It would have helped me make a lot better choices in my life. Once you're educated, you look at things differently. You see things in a different way, and it could help you make better choices. Of course, it can also help you get a better income. It's not always true, huh? But most likely, yes. There are more chances and possibilities if you are educated. And so I would say one of my biggest regrets is not focusing as much on education. I was focusing too much on other things that really I regret now. And some of it, while not, it wasn't like I was on drugs or wild or anything like that. It was focusing on things that really have no benefit for me now and in no way helps me at the moment. How about you? What regrets you have? Share with me in the comments area. Plenty things make me sad. I mean, it could be as simple as what's going on the earth, the wars. You see people being bombed out of their houses, starving, hungry, traveling for miles hoping for the American dream. All those things are sad, but I think the things that makes me the most sad is just simply my own children with special needs. Sometimes I know they cannot understand the world around them as they should, and it frustrates them, but it also keeps them in this naive position that makes me worry sometimes about what will happen to them when they become adults and their minds are still at a young age. Who would be trying to take advantage of them, and maybe I am no longer there to protect them. Just thinking about that makes me very sad sometimes. It's all the reason why I have um, a channel like JB's Man Cave. I'm hoping that even when I'm gone, somehow these videos would continue to run and play and help them have some sort of income. Just talking about it makes me sad. What makes me angry? I'm actually not the kind of person to get angry. I tend to tolerate a lot of stuff, which sometimes may not be a good thing. I just keep silent and keep to myself about it. But sometimes it can reach a boiling point like a pressure cooker and it just releases. However, things that get me angry are some of these pet peeves that I mentioned before. People who don't show respect to you as an individual or a person. They make fun of everything. They laugh, they joke, be sarcastic. I just can't stand those kinds of things. People who don't respect your personal space or your privacy or your wanting to um, just have peace and serenity in your own life just because they are unhappy. They want to make you unhappy. Those things make me angry. I don't like to see people also taking advantage of others. That really pisses me off. Like, seeing somebody trying to hurt somebody who's innocent or young or naive and take advantage of them. Those things really piss me off. I don't like that at all. And if I see it happening, I will speak up about it regardless of the risks sometimes. What makes you angry? Sometimes I wonder about what makes me happy. And to be honest, in this stage of my life where sometimes I hear so much negative things, sometimes what really makes me happy is just a good word, you know, somebody telling me something quote unquote good news. I like to hear good news, something good happening, especially where it concerns my family. Um, the older I get, I realize the more infrequent the good news comes. And that's sort of sad anyway. So it really makes me happy when I hear something good or somebody tell me something positive or something where I can look forward to the future. That really makes me happy. I also enjoy peace, serene, quiet surroundings where I can think and do work and stuff. That also makes me happy. If I feel like I'm progressing, I also feel happy. What makes you happy? Tell me in the comments area. Before I can talk about expressing love, I find that people really misunderstand what love is. I know in the world of the internet and the illusions that are created by movies and porn and all these things, they make you think love surrounds sex and physical beauty and stuff. But for me, love is really an action. It's a word that means that you are willing to do something for somebody without looking for something in return. That is love. Love is not always about romance. Love simply means that you care enough about the person that you're willing to give something of your own self and your own time and your own energy to make sure that they are happy regardless of how you feel. That is love. So for me, expressing love is not just saying I love you or you know put in roses or put in flowers or put in a nice note. Love is more about an action. To me, if you really love somebody, you will find out what they need, you will get to really know them, and you will help them in whatever they need. That is where true love is. You won't do anything to hurt them, you won't do anything to make them sad. You will only want to see them happy. That's true love. I have many concerns, and while I tend to, as I said before, keep most of my concerns to myself, if I feel that it's hurting somebody, I will express them. I tend to express my thoughts in a way that come across as mild or not direct, not confrontational, I should say. Just bringing up an idea to find out how the person thinks and feels, to find out if I could even express a concern. Because some people, when you bring up a concern, they find that maybe you should just keep it to yourself. They don't want any problems, right? But I believe in expressing concerns. And I think for those of you who are fans on my channel will know that I'm not shy of expressing my concerns about things, right? I do bring up things as I see it and say it because I feel that's the only way that they can be acknowledged and known as a problem. If we all just stay quiet, then everything will just run as it is. But that's not how life is. We need to express ourselves in order for things to change and progress. How do you express your concerns? Some of the big things that I admire in people, first of all, is I love people who may be highly intelligent or highly expert in something and yet still humble enough to ask your opinion or to find out, what your input into it. They're not so prideful and arrogant that they feel, oh, I'm an expert, or oh, I know more than you, so they can't hear what you have to say. I admire people who are willing to hear you out, no matter if they may feel you're wrong, treat you with respect, and so forth. They can be disagreeable, but in a manner that is, palatable for everybody. I love people like that. I'm not really into people who may be popular or beautiful or handsome or whatever. Those things are all very superficial for me. I don't fall for those things like most people these days. I look at the person's actions, their demeanor, the way they carry themselves, the way they talk, the way they treat others. Those things are very, very, very important to me, and it's what I admire most about people. It's not what they have, it's not how popular they are, or any of those things. Most of my stress, which is daily, I handle it on my own. Um, when I can, I like to take long walks. You know, recently you may have seen some videos where I do some cycling. That's really good. It gets all the excess toxins out of you. Stress may not necessarily all be mental, it could also be biological, where your body, and I'm not a medical doctor nor a psychologist, so please don't take everything that I'm saying as meant for you. This is just my personal opinion. But I feel that biologically your body needs to release its toxins, and if you're, for instance, in an environment where you don't get out much, or you don't do much, you don't do a lot of exercise and stuff, or you don't eat right, that can affect your mind as well, and stress can build up. Because we are all biological, we're not machines. We need a release. So I like to really get rid of my stress through one, the foods I eat, which may sound strange but is very true, exercise, and work. Work, while it might be stressful, also makes me feel like I'm being productive, and so I release stress that way. I guess whatever activity works out for you to release stress is good, right? You know, if you ask me this question at different ages in my life, I might say all kinds of different movies, right? But I tend to like movies where there's a struggle. I like realistic movies where um, I like to see the hardships of people's lives. One of my favorite movies is The Road, and it just shows how difficult life was for this father to protect their child and all that he went through. Another movie that I really love with Robert Powell is Jesus the Christ. Not necessarily because of Christ himself, though a great example for all of us. I just like the way Robert Powell acted in that. I really felt like, this really could have been how Jesus was. I see a lot of other movies about Jesus, and I don't know, they just don't do it for me like Jesus of Nazareth did. In that movie, he was really portrayed as just the any old guy out there, but with lots and lots of wisdom. And that's how I would feel Jesus would be. What's your favorite movie? I don't have a particular dress style. I am actually a minimalist. So, you know, thinking about things like, latest pants or shirt or shoes or whatever has no interest for me. I take things at a practical manner. If once I have a good coat, that's all I need, a good pair of jeans, some shoes, and I'm good to go. I don't need to have the latest brands or the latest style or any of those things. Just as long as I feel comfortable and fully clothed, I'm good to go. I do have a preference on, I have always liked baggy pants, not overly baggy, but I think most people refer to it as parachute pants. Um, I've always had particularly bigger legs, like soccer player legs, and so I never liked pants or jeans that stick to you. That to me is just very irritating. I always like my pants loose, so that's about the only preference I have. How about yourself? How do you like to dress? I know for the ladies that is a particularly important thing. So you can always tell me what kind of dress style do you have. You can put it in the comments area. By the way, if you notice there's a bit of like a smoke in the air, that's bushfires. They are being burnt, and so that's the smoke in the air. I don't have a particular favorite vehicle. I know people will jump and say Lamborghini or Porsche or some big name, but again, being a minimalist, those things don't interest me. Um, if I have a vehicle, I just want the vehicle to work and to be purposeful. For instance, if I had to choose between an expensive car and maybe a cheaper vehicle that could do for more for me, I would go for the cheaper vehicle. I know my wife might not want that. She might want a more luxurious vehicle. But for me, I would be more interested in practicality. That's why sometimes I like a truck, a pickup. If I need to pick up stuff or I need to go somewhere remote, I can do it. And the way they make trucks these days, if you need to make speed, you have the best of both worlds. You may have 4x4, and you can just as fast as a car. So I guess for me, I like pickup trucks the most. They're practical. I don't like the overly big ones, but just anything that works. That's the important thing. Once you turn it on, it works. I would consider myself a clean person. Definitely not messy. I like organization, and I like that, you know, my surroundings is clean and organized. One thing I don't like is like if I'm looking for stuff, I have to dig and dig and dig for it. No, I just do not like that. To me, if you have something, you need to access it and be able to access right away. And the only way you can have that happen is when your surroundings are clean and you're organized. There are some people who are not like that. They don't mind having things like all over the place and spend a lot of time wasted looking for stuff, but I am definitely not like that. I like to be neat. Every morning I get up and make my bed first thing, and organize myself, clean up, get ready for the day. To me, that's all part of the day. Not, I can't just leave with everything in a mess and a disarray. I would just feel so uncomfortable. How about you? Are you the clean or the messy type? If I was to come to your home now or your room, what would I see? Always tell me in the comments area. Don't be shy. I consider myself a timely person. I do find that the older I get, I would say I'm late, but in other words, I don't want to reach too early. I like to reach just in time, or like 5 minutes before. I don't like to be like overly early, like reaching an hour, half an hour before and just sitting there. I don't really have time for that. Time is very precious to me. So sometimes I calculate stuff to reach just in the time I'm supposed to be there. Sometimes because of that, I tend to end up hustling a bit, but I rather hustle than just spend time sitting waiting for something. So generally, I am timely. Very rare I'm late. If I'm late for something, it's because it's something beyond my ability, like an accident, um, police blockade, or something that's not planned for. That stops me from reaching my destination. How about you? Are you a timely or do you person or do you tend to be late? Tell me in the comments area. When I was younger, I used to be a big stamp collector and coin collector. And because of the life we lived, like I said, constantly moving, I lost a lot of my stuff in the process. And this kind of made me lose interest in it altogether. When you make all this effort to collect stuff and then you start losing it, you're like, why the heck am I even doing this? It's just part of my childhood that I never liked, the constant moving. As for now, I don't collect anything. I would say that because of the way technology is and my wanting to make use of older technology, that rather than reinventing the wheel, if older technology can work for what I need, sometimes I will try to collect adapters. I'll give you an example of that. Like if there's a monitor that only has a VGA connection, yet still my video card is only a display port. If I see the connector, the adapter for that, so it could work on my monitor, then I would try to get those, because you can never know when you will need it. I know that terminology may not make sense for a lot of people, but those of you who understand it will know what I mean. By the way, we've reached Port of Spain, and look at that sunset in the background. Isn't it nice? When I was a teenager, I kept a journal every day for like 6 years. Most of that was my missionary years too. And it wasn't easier. It may seem simple to just make some notes every day, but there's some days you come home really tired, or you may not be interested in writing, and so you forget. So my father was also a avid journal keeper, and that also got me interested in doing it. So yes, I kept a journal. Now I use these videos like a journal to give my thoughts out. And one benefit of doing this too is it will be good for my children, because they can always replay these videos and remember the sound of their father's voice and what was said and so forth. It makes me kind of sad saying it. Do you keep a journal? Let me know in the comments area. People will ask me, because of the way I look, they assume that maybe I am Hispanic and speak Spanish, but I only speak English, and even the English I have a hard time speaking well. I mean, I understand the dialect of my own country. That's hardly a language. So really I only know English. I know enough Spanish to survive. And when I say survive, I mean really survive. I had many opportunities to learn Spanish, but my brain is just not wired that way. There's just some people that are really gifted with languages, like my wife is. I'm on the creative side, and that's how I'm wired. I guess if you can call programming languages a language, like PHP or HTML or whatever, those are languages that I know, but you know, nobody walks around speaking in code. So yeah, I only know English. How about you? Do you speak multiple languages? Are you gifted that way? Let me know in the comments area. You know, growing up I used to love board games, especially new and unique board games. Some board games I used to play when I was young was like Dark Tower, Axis and Allies, Monopoly, and so forth. But looking back at my time and life, I realized the board game that I played the most was chess. That's right. I haven't played chess um, for decades. But did you know I used to play chess at tournament level in school? Yep. I used to really like chess at one time, but sometimes I used to wonder why I like it when it used to cause so much stress. You know, especially at tournament level and people are counting on you to win your game and stuff. It's really no longer fun. It's more like a you know, a life and death situation. And look at that sunset. Isn't it brilliant? Look at those colors. Magnificent. It's one of the things I like about being here in the Caribbean. These kind of colors and blends just It's like, wow. Tell me in the comments if you like it. Also tell me what kind of board games you like to play. For me, true friendship is somebody that, and this goes in kin with what I was saying before about the definition of love. A true friend cares about you, looks to make you happy, is concerned about your safety, your welfare, your happiness. That's true friendship. There are very few people I can count on and say they are my friends that actually seek after those things with regards to me to find out really how I'm going and what I need. I mean, those are true friends. They don't really, a friend doesn't expect something in return because they help you, other than simply maybe your company. That's not to say you should take advantage of that, but I'm just saying that those are true friends. How about you? Are you a true friend to somebody? Do you feel like you have true friends? Or is it all superficial? They just hang around you because you make them laugh or you provide something for them that they miss in their own lives. Tell me in the comments area. By the way, this is, I believe, the Audrey Jeffers Highway. On the left is the ocean. We're heading towards Diego Martin now. Almost to the end of our trip. So one of the final questions, how can you support me here on JB's Man Cave? Always like the same things that I ask. Like the video, let your friends know, let them come and subscribe, comment if you can, and if possible you can also make a monetary contribution via the donate button, either on my channel at jbmancave.com, or you could go to my website jboard.com, jbmancave.com. There are donate buttons there as well. Use them and you can donate. Give whatever you think is worthy of me producing all of this. If you know of jobs or things that can help me make a lot more than I currently do for the sake of my boys and my family, feel free to contact me and let me know about it. Those are all the ways that you can support me here on JB's Man Cave and help my channel to grow. I need way more subscribers than I have now. I passed 20,000, that's nice, but that is like a dot in the bucket of where I need to be. So I hope you enjoyed this trip from Point Fortin to Diego Martin, which is where we're going to be entering here just now. That's Westmoreland's on the left, and this is Diego Martin here, the Diego Martin Highway. It's nice to have you here watching with me. Let me know if you were able to watch the whole video and if you like this new format that I tried where I put the questions and answered. If you do, you can let me know in the comment section. I try to read all the comments and respond to them in a timely way. Do also look at my short videos. Check my homepage because a lot of you don't realize just how many videos I create each day, and you might miss a lot of them. Thanks so much for your support on JB's Man Cave. I really appreciate you.